You're listening to the Hazard Ground Podcast with service members from across the military sharing their stories of combat and survival. And now, here's your host, Mark Zeno.
Welcome into the Hazard Ground Podcast. Once again, we always appreciate you joining us each and every week. A couple of quick notes before we get to this week's guest. Want to remind you guys, leave us a rating and a review on iTunes. Love the reviews. Keep them coming. We love to hear back from you guys and get some feedback on the show, what you like, what you don't like. Follow us on all the social media sites, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, at Hazard Ground or at Hazard Ground Podcast. You'll find us everywhere. Also wanted to take a quick second to thank all of our sponsors. Patagonia, On It, Blue Apron, 510, Moose Jaw, Hydro Flask, and CSS Uncharted. Finally, one quick note about our good friends at the Shepherd Center and the Share Military Initiative. Folks, I have worked with these people. I know them personally. This is one of the finest veteran centers in all of America. They will 100% absolutely change the life of any veteran struggling with PTSD, traumatic brain injury, or whatever emotional issues, physical issues that you may be dealing with. These are the people that you need to reach out to. They will literally get you from wherever you are in America to their center here in Atlanta and change your life. Check them out online at shepherd.org. That's SHEPERD.org. The best place to go, the Share Military Initiative at the Shepherd Center. Literally, they are saving lives on a daily basis, so make sure you check them out. Now, on to this week's episode. This week's guest is a retired Army captain who spent 10 years in the Army, including time as a combat trauma registered nurse in Afghanistan. He is Captain Ryan Hepworth on the Hazard Ground Podcast. Ryan, welcome. Thank you for joining us.
I appreciate it, Mark. Thank you for having me.
I did neglect to mention in the intro, one of the things you're doing now is part of the Shadow Warrior Foundation. It's an incredible foundation that is helping save the lives of veterans. We're going to get into that later on into the podcast, but let's start back at the very beginning. Why and how did you get into the Army?
I was in nursing school in Oklahoma, and it was kind of crazy. I was working out at the gym, like most man nurses try to do, and
you have everybody thinking of Meet the Parents right now. Come on, Fokker.
I know, right? It's like Gaylord Fokker, checking in here, But so I was sitting there working out, man, and a recruiter approached me, and he was, just kind of shooting the pitch, and stuff like that. If I've ever thought about military service and whatnot, and and I had, honestly, and I, we just kind of started, developing a little dialogue about, what I was doing and stuff like that. And he said, hey, you should let the, the military, pay for the rest of your school, and I was like, oh, okay, man, I'll see what I can do. I just kind of kept on, didn't think anything of it. And I really didn't talk to the guy, that much after that. But it kind of, stuck in my mind, there's a long line of military service in my family, something I always wanted to do, I was focused on becoming an ER nurse, a flight nurse, and stuff like that. And it just made sense to me, like what better way to do that than be in the military. I've been working as a tech in the ER and stuff like that. And, taking care of civilians is a great thing, as well, but I wanted to do something bigger than myself. I know that sounds cliche, it sounds like a recruiting video, but I really did, 9/11, to be honest, pissed me off, and that just, been a couple of years since that had happened, so I decided to join in reserve status, finish up school, and then, direct commission after graduation.
What year was it that you signed up? It was obviously post 9/11, but what year?
I signed up in 2004.
Okay.
So end of 2004. So.
You knew at that point in time you were definitely, you signed up, you're definitely going somewhere at some point in time, right? You went in with that knowledge that you were going to go do that.
Definitely.
Now, was that something, because look, you sign up to be a nurse in general, even in the civilian world, you're going to see some real stuff, right? That just kind of happens. It's the nature of the job. Did you think that when you were going into the Army, you were going to see different stuff than what you would have normally seen as a regular ER nurse or whatever it is? What were your expectations as far as what kind of job you were going to do? Because you knew that, unlike, for those who are not military listening, unlike when you enlist and they kind of pick a job for you, if you have a degree as a nurse or a doctor or a lawyer, you can, as Ryan said, direct commission right into that field. So there was no bones about it. You knew exactly what you were going to do when you were going in, but kind of what were the expectations of, hey, I'm going to go into a combat zone and do this job?
Yeah, so it's like I guess when you go in, the majority of registered nurses, docs, they work in those brick and mortar buildings. You got to work at Brook Army Medical Center or Tripler, one of those large med centers, and you have your smaller clinics and stuff like that. One of my mentors, when I was going through basic, and stuff like that, and coming out, and we had like a little career path type a program. He had mentioned to me, because I was from a little bit different cut, I like to get out there and get dirty and stuff like that. So you have MedCom, which is, you work with inside of MedCom, the big, hospitals, med centers, but then you have ForceCom, which are your more organic units, your combat support hospitals, your forward surgical teams, things like that. And so I volunteered to become ForceCom and not stay MedCom, just so I could, go out there and make a difference on the battlefield, eventually. And that's the path that, I chose, and that's where it took me. So I made that choice.
I guess more of, was it the thrill of getting to save lives quicker than what you would feel like you'd do in a civilian capacity?
Yeah, it really was, it really was, I wanted to be on, I wanted to experience cutting edge medicine, and really have that effect. I wanted to, I wasn't doing it to be like, oh, hey, I'm an adrenaline junkie, but honestly, I kind of am. But I wanted to maximize that impact, from start to finish, and not just, get it midway. You know what I mean? Does that make sense?
No, sure, absolutely. I mean, and everybody has to. It's funny how everybody on this podcast, they talk about going into combat and everything else. They always caveat it with, well, not that I'm an adrenaline junkie or like I'm a war junkie, but well, I mean, it's an interesting dynamic because in reality, we all sign up with the wherewithal of knowing what that is, and whether you're into that sort of thing or you're not into that sort of thing, it's just something mentally you have to acknowledge. And so you don't have to acknowledge I'm doing it because, I like to go, pull the trigger and go kill people and blow stuff up. I mean, it's just a matter of this is the nature of the job that we do. And so understanding all the limits that come with that and all the things that come with it, I think are important. So I find it funny that people have to caveat, well, I'm not an adrenaline junkie. No. Look, adrenaline comes in different forms in different ways, so it's an interesting thought.
I just really wanted to know the guys that I was working on. I wanted to feel that team element, that I wanted to feel part of them. And I know that's something that's earned. I mean, I never went into anything saying, hey, you're gonna call me Doc. I mean, you earn that. I mean, even being an RN, 60 whiskey, combat medic, or even a physician. I mean, no one goes in there and say, hey, I'm Doc, but you earn that,
Well, see, now that's an interesting dynamic that I didn't even think of. The way you phrased that from the standpoint of I wanted to know the guys I was working on. Because I think a part of medicine, right, in the civilian world, it's very impersonal, right? And you're supposed to treat it impersonal. Isn't that what they say? You can't get emotional about a diagnosis. You can't get emotional about a specific patient because it clouds your judgment. In this case... You're actually looking for that cloudiness, so to speak. Like you want to know the guy that's life you're trying to save. I mean, does that make it tougher?
It really does. It makes it a lot harder. You hit the nail on the head when you put that divider in there, because in the civilian sector, because I work both sides, in the civilian sector, you don't have that connection. Not saying that there's any lack of urgency or any professionalism in what you're doing, but when you know the guys, it's different.
I think it becomes. I think it becomes in the civilian world. This is a gunshot wound. This is a broken leg. This is a heart palpitation. But in the military, it's that's Sergeant Jones, that's Specialist Riley, and that's Private Smith, and that's how it's different. Like everybody has a name attached to it.
exactly. And you're hurting for the guy too. One thing that I actually, I mean, this is a good point in this conversation to bring in First Sergeant Callahan, Rob Callahan, that we lost last week. He lost his battle with PTSD, unfortunately, and that one it just tears you up, just the impact that he had on me, personally. I mean, I had some command time, over in Afghanistan, and he was my first sergeant, and and he was amazing. I mean, he's the one who pulled me to the side. I was probably in Afghanistan for maybe a day, maybe a couple of days, and we had some, significant traumas come through. And I'm working on the guy, and I'm busting my ass trying to, do what we got to do. And I went to him because he's old school, whiskey one guy. He's cream of the crop in terms of like combat medics. And I was like, how do you process this stuff? I was like, how do you, because I mean, I know you as an officer, as a leader, you want to be strong for your guys. And he said, just don't wear it on your sleeve. You got to put that, pack that shit away. Leave it for a later time. Because if you're sitting there and you're emotional, and then you're, letting that bleed out onto the guys that you're working on, they're going to recognize that, and they're going to be like, okay, is this guy confident? Is he not comfortable with the situation? Is he just, pussy, basically? I mean, is he not going to be able to perform to the expectation that for one, that rank displays, and that what his profession is, and so you tuck it away and you put it away for later on, and you can't, you become a very good liar. I know that sounds bad, but there are a lot of times where, you're working on a guy and what his prognosis is, he's not going to make it. I mean, you're just giving him comfort measures and stuff like that. And you say, no, man, you're going to be good. You're going to be with your family, because, I'm a very observant person. You start looking at tattoos of his kids, on his forearms and stuff, where he's wearing a wedding ring. And, you're like, you become a very good liar, and you say, no, man, you're going to be fine. You're going to be good. But in reality, you're just trying to patch him up to make him look presentable, because the next time he sees his family, they're going to be, laying him to rest. And that's the shit that, it stays with you, and I apologize if I get a little emotional about it, because it stays with you, it's that survival guilt.
No, look, I mean, it's okay to be emotional about it. We share a lot of emotions here on the Hazard Ground, and that's part of, I guess what makes us a little bit cathartic is to talk with these guests and get all those emotions out. And yeah, I mean, that's when you put it in those terms, the next time they're going to see their loved one, it's, they're going to be laying them to rest. I mean, that's a lot to bear on your shoulders. And I could see how quickly those efforts may seem futile. Like, why am I dressing this person? Why am I doing all these things when in reality, there's nothing I can do to change the outcome. Do you start to think about those family members and say, I'm doing this for them now? I can't do it to save the individual, but now I'm doing it for their family?
You really, it really is, and if it's your, you're working on their face, or you're, just trying to make them look as normal as possible. I mean, I know there's other services that do that as well, but I mean, you take it and, cause I mean, it just, that's what it is. I mean, you gotta make them feel like you did everything that you could, because you made a promise to them, I mean, granted, you go into a battlefield, and then you go over to fight in whatever theater of war that you're in, that, sometimes people aren't gonna make it back, but you make that promise to those family members, and they, they almost entrust, their family member to you, saying, okay, yeah, they're, Doc's gonna bring them home, I mean, that's what their job is, to take care of them, it kind of trickles down into every MOS in the military is like that, but when you don't make that happen for them, then you try your damnedest to at least, provide some type of closure for them. you know, and in that sense to make them, you know, presentable, make them look better, or, you know, just, yeah, yeah, it's
It's
a
tough.
rough one, man. I don't even know if it's a pill you can actually ever swallow. Just kind of swishes around in your mouth.
Yeah, actually a really good way to describe it. We fast forwarded a lot. I do want to back up a little bit because to kind of close the circle for the listeners. So you got in as a direct commission, 2004,
Yeah.
right? How quickly do you get to
Yeah.
unit and deploy? Kind of, and just take us to how quickly you got to Afghanistan.
Okay, yeah. So I was in my reserve status throughout school. I graduated in 2008, and so I got my first assignment, Brooke Army Medical Center. I was in like kind of floated around a little bit, you know, ICU, stepped down, did some stuff over in Bern. Actually got to pull some stuff over at the Center for the Intrepid, you know, which is it's an amazing facility.
Now, where is Brooke Army Medical
know,
Center? Which post is that?
It's in San Antonio. It's
Okay.
up there at Fort Sam Houston.
Gotcha. Okay.
You know, so and Brooke right there. Yeah. So I went there, and I was you're basically I was medcom, and so you start to receive your assignments. You know, you're a profis filler, like a professional filler assignment. So you don't really have a particular unit. You're assigned to that hospital, and you have your company that you're there with. And so I was there for not even a year. And a colonel that I worked with, Colonel Marquez, he was an RN as well, but he had received an assignment to be attached to Task Force 115, which is basically the combat support hospital there in Fort Polk, Louisiana. And he asked me if I was interested in going down there with him because I had worked on training, new RNs, new docs that came in, like chest tubes and, stuff like that. And he knew that I was very, very anxious and chomping at the bit to get out there and, get in the mix and then put my skills to the test, being my, ER background and stuff like that. And so I, requested to be placed on this task force on his team, and that transitioned me to a force comm team member, and received my assignment. And I was, after I'd spoken with him, I was ready to rock in about a month. And I reported to Fort Polk, Louisiana for training, and then shipped out to Afghanistan. That was end of 2010.
When you took that assignment, or when you volunteered for it, were you in a place where it was just like, this is why I signed up to go? Or was the working at the regular Brooke Army Medical Center kind of like not giving you your adrenaline fix, so to speak? Or what was the mindset behind raising your hand and volunteering?
It was it was kind of a mixture of all of that, I liked working, and at Brooke, but I felt like a civilian, to be honest. You would roll into work, and a lot of times you wouldn't even wear your fatigues and stuff like that, and I honestly just felt like a civilian.
You were treating the sniffles a lot, I guess, huh?
Yeah, it was just like that, man. We, every now and then we get guys then from downrange, and we're working on them and stuff like that, and I was like, man, and granted, when you're a soldier, you're a soldier. Everybody puts on a uniform, but honestly, man, I truly felt like I was a civilian that put on a uniform every now and then. I felt like I was a weekend warrior type, and I was like, man, this isn't what I was looking for. This isn't what I signed up to do. If I'm in the military, I need to, train like, soldiers train. I need Fort Polk, Louisiana. That's not the exact, the ideal place that everybody wants to go to, but hey, it was the option that I was given, and I took it, and I knew right then, right when I took that assignment, I reported my very first day that that was where I needed to be, and that's where I planned on staying. Was staying force comm throughout my career because I was with soldiers, and I got to train with them, and we got to go to the field and do what we had to do. Got to deploy with them, and that's what I was looking for. That's what I signed up for. I wanted to to, serve, a country that in the, highest capacity that I could. And they gave me that, not because, I wasn't going out looking for awards and medals. No one looks for that. To be honest, you know how it is. And
Sure.
that provided that avenue to, say, hey, I am a soldier, man. I train like one. I go out there and I'm with them. And that's what it was about for me.
When you get to Afghanistan, you're working at the Combat Support Hospital, and what is the day-to-day kind of tempo like? Like, take me through your first couple of days on ground, because you said that you had some heavy stuff happen the first couple of days when you got on ground. Take me to set that scene. Take me there and let me know how that first couple of days went.
Yeah. So we go through the typical in processing type stuff when you go in country. We went to Germany first and then hit Manus, which was freaking colder than hell. I didn't think that the blue stuff inside of latrines was supposed to freeze, but man, that shit was frozen, and I was like, man, this is crazy, and we went from one extreme to the complete opposite. So we were down in southern Helmand province, like below Kandahar, which is hot as balls if anyone's ever been there, and so we're in there, and it's basically just a little tent city. Our hooches, they were just tents, and and I was good with it, but then you walk into your area. So I walked into our emergency treatment tent, and I walk in there, and it's just different. But I knew that I was in my element, and with the heat there, if blood gets anywhere, it coagulates in the heat, and it has a very distinct smell. And I remember that being one of the first smells when I went in there. I opened up that tent flap and walked in and was meeting the team, and I was like, yeah, this is real. This is real. And to this day, I'm helping my wife, in the kitchen, or she's cooking something, and she opens up the oven and that heat hits you. It puts me back there. It's the craziest thing, because it's like that heat. It's like an oven heat, and I can still smell coagulated blood, and that's it's that whole. I don't know. It's not a flashback. I don't think. I think it's just it takes you back to somewhere where you're so dedicated, and that was probably the realest time in my life was that, and it started once I went into that, treatment tent for the first time.
That's the weird thing too about what a lot of people don't understand about PTSD. The triggers for it are so small. They seem so banal and trite. And it's like there are certain smells that take me back to Baghdad. Like certain things I smell, that smells like the Bag. There was the loop of the Baghdad airport. You drive around that thing and tepid, stagnant water, just filled with sewage. You just have this smell that makes you want to throw up in your Kevlar. And there are certain times I'll have that similar smell, and you're like, it goes right back to Baghdad. It's little things like that, and I think that's what's hard for civilians to understand about PTSD. Some of it's more severe than others. Some of the reaction to it's more severe, but there are little triggers, little things that happen that kind of just bring your mind and drift it back to a place where it was. And so I certainly can relate with that, and I certainly understand that standpoint, what you're going through, but I think you do a good job at explaining it to everybody. Can you remember the first real kind of patient that was brought into the cache that you had to work on?
Yeah. So there was, we were down there, so it was basically a Marine, area of operation, So we had regimental combat teams 1 and 5 of the Marine Corps that operated heavily down there. We had Leatherneck and all those, bases down there, and FOBs and COPS just kind of scattered throughout. And I remember probably one of my first ones. It was and I got to tell you, man, too, if the types of injuries that we were working on, granted, it would go from like, 0, like, oh, I got, I walked into some freaking, C-wire and I cut my leg up, and we're just throwing stitches into, we got people that are blown in half and just, stuff like that. But I remember there was a young Marine that came in. He hit by an IED, and I know that the IEDs, I mean, we didn't really deal a lot with any VBIDs and stuff like that, like guys were dealing with over in Iraq and stuff. I mean, we were dealing with those little bitty undetectable ones, leftovers from, conflict with Russia. I mean, a lot of HME type stuff, the homemade explosives that, our vehicles couldn't detect all the time. And, so this Marine, he was hit by an IED, and he was actually a triple amputation, so he was missing his leg, and both legs actually, and an arm. And, it's, you're ready for something if you roll in and you don't freeze. You get the kind of deer in headlights type, look, and you can see other guys too. So it was kind of like a vetting process for the team. It's like, okay, this person's going to be all right, or this person's not going to make it. They need to, be changed out, put somewhere else, because you didn't want anybody in your team to hinder the work that you were doing. But I remember this guy, we always had a formula for blood and plasma that we would push, because we were our blood source. And I was actually the officer in charge of that, the walk-in blood bank. And so I kept a registry of, everyone's types of blood and how often they could, donate, and whenever we'd get a Marine in or any type of, American soldier, service member, whoever, every member on Dwyer would come out. They would come out in droves. I mean, they would try to sneak under the wire and donate before, the time for when we could donate again, because they knew that it was one of their brothers, that needed that blood. And if they didn't get it, they were going to die. And, for this young Marine, man, it came out in droves. So, we start off with we call it 2 and 2 per limb. If they're missing their left leg, we give them two units of fresh frozen plasma and 2 units of PRBCs, or packed red blood cells. That's what you automatically do. And I remember, seeing this guy, and I just, your mind automatically switches to, all right, this guy's going to need 6 of each, he needs 6.
Do you remember his name? Not that you have to share it, because I know this is medical stuff, but do you remember his name?
It's crazy. And I know this sounds cliche, but I didn't really remember any of the guys that we had saved. I remember the guys that we didn't.
No, that makes sense. That I could understand. Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know why it worked out that way. I think it's because you remember, someone getting hit and things not going the way that you wanted them to, which is very rare, in a scenario like that. And you just think back, okay, what could I have done in Benjamin's case? And I say Benjamin because that's one that still, is like, what can I do better so we don't have this occur again?
Right. Makes sense.
And
so, sorry to derail you. I just was curious if you remembered his name or not. But go ahead. I'm sorry.
No. I have one, so, and then the thing about it is too, is like, so this Marine, he ended up surviving, and, after everything is done, you're cleaning up your floor, and, there's just blood everywhere. And, we're pushing him up to the next echelon of care, and trying to get him to, for one, trying to get him to CAF, and then from CAF to Germany, and stabilizing Germany back to, stateside, to get, the treatment that he needs. And it's just reset,
Right.
you're thinking all that stuff and it's reset. Then you go and, you go to the hooch later on that night, and you're laying down, and you're like, damn, I was like, what's his life going to be like now?
Yeah. Well, I was literally thinking the same thing. I'm sure people listening were thinking, people are fortunate enough to have all 4 limbs, and when you lose 3 of them, what's the quality of life for that individual?
Yeah.
I mean, that's, do you ever stop and think, what am I actually saving here?
Yeah. Especially the guys with the massive TBIs, I mean, it's so crazy, you know. I mean, we'd get the mist, you know. It's like a little report, you know, from point of injury, and just it's like a little blurb of information on injuries and stuff, and what we got coming in, how many, and you know what was the mechanism of injury, you know what caused it, and whenever we hear anything about IEDs, like, yeah. And that was something too that we really trained our medics and each other to focus on. You know, it's like, just because they roll in and they got, you know, their legs just, I mean, honestly, man, I mean, it doesn't look like a leg when they step on it, they're, you know, dismounted or something like that. There's so much dust and, you know, moon dust and just tissue everywhere. It almost looks like a shaggy carpet, you know.
Wow.
We try to get them not to get to focus on that part that just looks torn up and just beat to hell, because it could actually be a piece of shrapnel, you know, in their chest cavity that's killing them. You know, it could be something else. So we try to work on, okay, yeah, that part looks awful, you know, that's awful, but what's killing them right now? Like, what can we do to, you know, to at least keep the glass full, you know, and then we can work on those other parts, you know. And it just, you know, it's the craziest thing, you know, and it just, you know.
How do you reconcile the ones that you don't save versus the ones that you do? And what I mean is, you know, when you put your head on the pillow at night, you sit there and you think about all the things that you could have done, or the quality of life. I mean, you know, because sometimes that line is so thin, right? Like the line is so thin between saving someone and not. So I assume that some guys you lose, and not to be callous about it, they're easier to lose than others, right? Because some guys come in and you know they got no shot, and some guys you think you're bringing back and that you end up losing them after the fact, or some guys you're not really sure. So, you know, how do you reconcile all those differences? Because not every case is exactly the same.
Yeah. I mean, it's, you know, it's just like that. I mean, some of them, you know, are just, like, I remember, I'll never forget, this is one that I just, you know, it's kind of crazy, you know. So every time I see a duffel bag, I go back there, you know, because.
You mean the green Army duffel bag?
Yep, just the green duffel, man. Just the green duffel.
Your A bag, as they call it.
A lot of, yeah. And so, you know, so you get, you know, I see an aid bag now, and you know, I put mine all together, you know, that I got them in my closet. I just kind of got to put away because I see them and I go back, you know, you know, and I know the reason why. So, you know, just going back to what you're asking me, the ones, like, how do I reconcile? Like, I know some that are just awful cases, and I know there's no chance, and some, you know, but the duffel issue comes with, so I remember we got a call, and it was basically just, we were receiving, you know, a couple of, you know, guys who were hit, and, but every service member that we lost, we had to determine the mechanism of injury and what killed them. And I'll never forget, there's a Marine that came in, and we went and we got him off the bird, and man, he was missing his head. His right arm was basically just ripped off at the shoulder. He was missing his leg, you know, stuff like that, and we couldn't put him in a body bag, you know, those roll-out black body bags that they give everybody. Couldn't fit him in it, man. So I remember I went inside.
Why?
And grabbed. He was just so mangled. His body wouldn't fit. It was just blown apart. And I was like trying desperately, you know, I mean, I wasn't being quick, because, you know, I think if you're going quick and something like that, you're gonna miss something. And it's just didn't seem I wanted to maintain that highest level of respect when, you know, you're going through and doing something like that. And I remember I knew that he was Irish because he had, you know, Notre Dame tattoo, you know, like on his thigh, and he had you know, like the Irish knots, you know, around his like collarbones, almost like a necklace. and that was the only part that was recognizable, and that's how we ended up identifying him. Because the other guys that were with him, I mean, they were, a couple of them were smoked, and one of them, severe TBI, and I just remember rolling his body and feeling that weight, and going and getting the duffel, and I remember I grabbed my knife and I cut the duffel right up the middle, and I used the straps, the shoulder straps on the day-back, and I used that to pull it together, to hold his body together, to hold everything in, because it was just a mess, and yeah.
And that's just
So no, those are a little easier to deal with, I guess. Well, not easy, but my mind is like, there's nothing we really could have done. I mean, obviously, but then you're like, I got to find all these pieces because his family deserves to get all of them. And I know that, some of him is still out there. And it's like, man, we need to go get the rest of them. I don't want one of those freaking assholes to, be able to do something with it. It's like, oh, here's, this Marine's leg. We're going to freaking, put it on display.
sure.
That shit was, I didn't want that shit happening, not with our guys,
Are you surprised at what you remember about certain cases versus what you don't?
Yeah. I mean, like I'm talking to you about like this right now, and I feel like I'm there. I know exactly, it's weird. I remember I rolled him over, and there's some blood in his chest cavity. I remember it splashed up and hit me on the left side of my face, kind of trickled down. I felt like I was just sweating a lot, but it was actually, I remember everything. So, I can tell too, because I'm looking down, my heart rate's up, and, but I'm fine, because this is good for me.
Right.
Does it make sense?
No, absolutely. I mean, do you feel comfortable talking about one of your tougher cases, one of your tougher patients that you had to deal with?
Yeah. I do, because it's this is, and my wife, she's one of the main reasons why I'm around, because she's the one who said, you need to talk, because I almost took my life, so.
Well, and that led to Shadow Warrior Foundation, which I want to get to, but I kind of just want to hear a little bit more about your experience.
Yeah, and so there's one case in particular, because it's still an open case, and I won't use the names out of respect for the family.
No, that's fine.
But I mean, we can talk. We can talk offline about it, and I can give you a full breakdown. But I mean, so there was a Marine. He was a colonel. He came in, and I guess I'll give the background story. So he was he was out, at a graduation, because you had to train some of the Afghanis, whether it be ANA guys or AMP, those type of guys, and they got everything, the group had graduated, and so this colonel with his team, they were there, just to celebrate. It's like, hey man, you guys did something great, you graduated, and little did they know that there was an embedded Taliban, in that group, and decided to have a jihad on him. And so he turned his weapon on him and shot him. And so the colonel came in, and, I remember just looking like we got the word in, we got the mist, and we were like, okay, so we're prepping everything like that. And so I got my team together. We typically took on the most difficult traumas, we knew each other's movements. That's how our whole team was inside of that ER tent, and but typically when it hits a fan like that in a mass cow situation, we call on, others, throughout our task force to come in and help out. And so we got, guys, Marines coming in to donate blood, because everyone knew this guy, he was very seasoned, very respected. His Marines that came in with him, they called him, they were yelling out for Dad. They were, they kept asking, how's dad doing? I mean, it's like, sir, you doing okay? You doing okay? And so yeah, when they bring the patients in, I remember looking past, our medic or our flight medic that was coming in giving us report, and his face was, I could just tell, his face that, they were bringing something that was tough, and I remember looking right past him to kind of get an idea of which patients were flown in where, so I could triage them a little better. And, there was one Marine that they kind of just put off to the side. I could tell he was very gray, and we know what gray is. He had already passed. He had a family of 3 actually, and but then the colonel's coming to us, and when we start working on him immediately, I remember jumping on his chest and doing compressions. We had a Colonel Tavoff. He was our cardiothoracic guy. He was working on him, and we're all doing interventions, starting lines and getting blood prepped and whatnot. And we cut his clothes off and everything, looking for entrance exit. And he had gotten hit in the armpit area, the axilla region, and we know that's where freaking body armor doesn't cover. You wear those side plates and they just protect your freaking hip bones more than they do anything else.
Yeah.
And we tracked where it went. We couldn't find the exit, so we knew that it was bad news in the inside. So I remember I had my one of our best combat medics there, Matt McGee. He starts taking over on his chest, and we decided to do a thoracotomy on him. And a thoracotomy is basically you crack the chest open, to kind of get a better idea, massage the heart, if needs be, check and see what type of injuries, if any, to the cardiac sac, the little sac that holds the heart in there. And Colonel Tavoff is in there, and he's looking. I remember I'm pulling back on the rib cage to get him a better view and look around. And we could see that there was a pretty decent hole that the heart had been struck, by the bullet. And I remember I rolled him towards me, to kind of to see where the exit wound was, to kind of track it better. And it's so crazy, man. I thought I'd pissed myself, but it wasn't piss, man. It was the blood that had, come out of his chest when we cracked his chest, and it had just kind of dumped all over me, and I was like, shit, man, and so rolling back over, man, we start working on him, and dude, busting our asses, man. I mean, you don't feel any fatigue, when you're working on somebody like that for so long, but I mean, I look down and I see the ring on his finger, he's an older guy. I know he's got family, his Marines respect him so much. And, you start lying, remember how we had talked earlier about being a good liar, and you're looking over at the other guy's getting treated. And, cause I remember there's one dude, I mean, he's the tallest guy ever, man. He needed to decide if he wanted his head to be dangling off of the litter or his legs, and he kept looking over, and I remember he'd grab me, by my pants and be like, hey, Doc, is he all right? How's Dad doing? Is he all right? And I just remember like, hey man, we got him. He's gonna be fine, man. Y'all like me joking about this shit later on, and I just, man, I just knew. And sorry, man.
No, it's okay. It's okay, honestly. I mean, it's
but
putting it all back together, man. I mean, don't sweat it.
All right. So yeah, tell him, man, hey, he's gonna be fine. Don't worry about it. We got him. I was like, we need to get him some medication. Kind of knock him out a little bit, because he had significant damage to his leg. I mean, he got shot, in the thigh, and it was just shattered. And so he got medication in him, and they got, pushed on, to surgery to get worked on. And I just knew, it got to the point, where we're just like, man, we're dumping blood into this guy, and he would get a little bit of color back, but then you just see it leave him as he would just bleed on the floor, and it's like, it's like, what do? So you just keep, you busting your ass, working on him until, somebody calls it. And so they ended up calling it. And I just remember, I don't know if I said it in my head or if I said it out loud, but I was like, man, fuck that, man. It's like, it's like, he's got family, it's like, and I remember, it was like, my buddy, Marcus Lee, and Kamal Kowsey, and, these are all the guys that are on the team with us, man. And I remember, first time Callahan, Top, he's over there and he's like, it's all right, and you just don't want to, you don't want to go with, hey, it's all right. You want to be like, he's all right. And so he ended up expiring, and, we didn't really have mortuary affairs over there. So it was us. And I thought, just because I was a little bit older than some of these guys, I needed to do it.
Right.
And instead of those younger guys, because I didn't want them to carry that, And so me and Matt, we draped a flag over him and we stood by him, until Marines were able to come pick him up, So we put that flag on him and we had our ramp ceremony. And I'm sure you know what a ramp ceremony is, and all the other brothers listening out there, they know what that is. And so we had our ramp ceremony, and we, loaded him up in the truck and, got him sent out. And the Marines, they never took the flag that we had put on him, and I kept it, and I put it in my tough box, and I kept it the whole time.
Why didn't they take it?
I don't know. Why didn't they?
Yeah.
I'm not sure, man. I'm not sure. Typically they do.
Yeah, that's why I asked.
They didn't. I don't know. Maybe it's just because everybody was just in shock because of who he was, and we had a couple of, we lost a couple of guys that day. Maybe it's, I don't know, man. But I kept it, and I don't know why I did, but I didn't. I just felt like I needed to. I didn't think that needed to be placed on anybody else for the rest of the time. So I just kept it. I actually, got to the time where I was going to be retired because I injured my neck and back pretty badly. And, the Army was letting me go. And, my wife, she's like, you need to unload that flag. You need to get that back to his widow. And I was like, I know. And so, I reached out to Marine, the Keiko, and it asked them, I was like, I have this man, and I didn't, because he's buried in Arlington, and I didn't want it to seem like I was trying to, one up them, because I know that, the family receives a flag when they're buried, and that was one thing that I was just worried about, but I knew that I couldn't keep it either because, damn, that thing's heavy.
Right.
And, so I ended up asking the Keiko if it was okay if the widow would want to speak to me. I was working on her husband, and and so, I actually ended up getting to speak with her and tell her, and that was probably one of the hardest conversations I've ever had, and I just kept apologizing. I think I apologized maybe 20 times to her, man, and she's like, it's all right, it's okay. And I was like, it's not, and I was just bawling, man, and I'm not a freaking pussy, man. I'm freaking, but, just, I don't know. And I asked her, I was like, do you want this? And she was like, yeah, I'll be honored to have it. And I told her, I was like, she wanted to know how her husband had died, like his injuries and stuff, because I guess I didn't tell her. And I was still active duty, so I don't think I was able to, so I didn't tell her. And I told her I'd tell her in person next time that I saw her. And I haven't been able to get in touch with her, man. I still have that flag, and it sits in my closet, and I look at it every day. And when stuff gets shitty for me, I look at that, and I'm like, dude, it could be a lot worse.
She never reached back out?
No.
Did you ever try to get in touch with her?
I have.
And no response?
No response.
Wow. That's
And that one.
yeah, I don't, yeah, that's, whew.
Yeah. I mean, you've been to the Tillman races, right?
Yes, yeah.
Remember seeing us out there, the big
Yep.
flag that I put on the back?
Oh, that was that flag?
That's the flag.
Wow. And what Ryan's referring to is the Pat Tillman run that happens every year on, the weekend of Pat's being killed in action. Pat Tillman, the former NFL safety. There's satellite runs. The original one originated in Tempe, but there's satellite runs in New York, Chicago, and there's one here in Atlanta where I live and where coincidentally Ryan lives. And so that's where Ryan and I linked up. But I do remember seeing that flag. Let me ask you, when you look back on it, do you think you took on too much? Do you think you didn't share some of the burden with the rest of your team enough? Do you feel like you're carrying too much? Because, and I mean, look, this, like everything that goes on in that hospital is a team effort. No one person individually saves somebody, and no one person individually fails to keep somebody alive. But yet when I hear you tell the stories and I hear you speak, I feel like you carry the burden of your entire team with you.
Yeah.
Why?
I don't know. I don't want them to carry that. I feel like if anybody should, it should be me. Because, I mean, I'm not saying that I'm some freaking, hard ass, super doc or, because I'm far from that, man, because, I mean, there's just no such thing. But I don't want their minds to be clouded with that. Because I don't want, and then I guess it reinforced it, with First Sergeant Callahan taking his life this past weekend. I don't want that to happen, to anyone. Right. I'm not saying that I'm handling it the best way, but I'm doing a lot better now than I used to.
Well, that's a good transition point to the Shadow Warrior Foundation, because not only are your own struggles, but helping with the struggles of other people. How did that come about? How did you start that? And, where did the idea come from?
Okay, yeah. So with Shadow Warriors, my last duty station, I was out at, I was assigned to the 3rd Brigade Combat Team of 25th out in Schofield Barracks, Hawaii. And, I was basically on my way out. I was being medically retired. I broke my neck, and back pretty well. Well, good enough for them to tell me, it's like, hey man, you need to hang it up. You're done. You're gonna either, you'll die on us, which we don't want, or, one wrong move and you're done. And so I was like, man, it's like this is my whole life. I don't, what the hell am I gonna do? When I'm out. I know civilian jobs. I'm like, man, civilian jobs, freaking, I love my job now. It's great, but back then I was like, man, I don't know what the hell I'm gonna do. I can't pass the physical because I don't have a lot of dexterity and the ability to work very good with my hand, my right hand anymore, because of the nerve damage. But I was like, man, what am I gonna do? And it's like I'm supposed to help people and help my Joes and whoever, and so Ricky Schroeder Productions, they came out and they did a show called Starting Strong, and y'all probably seen some stuff. It's basically they'll take a civilian and put them in the MOS of an infantryman or a flight medic or whoever, just different MOSs to kind of build the civilian knowledge of what we do and what it's about. And so they wanted to do one on a registered nurse, so they reached out to me to do one, and because my role was a little bit different being force comm. And so we did that show, and it was a really good success. And there's a guy that was part of their production team. His name was Steve Kreider, and he was a first sergeant actually. And I told him, I was like, man, I don't know what I'm gonna do, man. I'm kind of just lost. you know, it's like my wife says, you know, hey, you should continue doing something, you know, with soldiers, because I mean, everyone knew how much it meant to me. I mean, you know, you go from being part of a team to dropped in the civilian sector, and it's like damn man, you're lost. You know, it's like, what do you do? And so it was like, you know, we have this group out in California. They're called the Vet Hunters Project, and they look for, you know, homeless vets and stuff like that, and you know, just basically, you know, do what they can for them. And so we got here to Hawaii, or from Hawaii to Atlanta. You know, I moved here. I remember I was driving to the VA, you know, to get established there and stuff like that. And I counted. It was like, I think it was like 13 or 14 guys on the side of the road. Just, you know, they looked homeless, but I mean, they looked squared away too, you know. And I pulled over and asked, you know, a couple of guys. I was like, "What are you doing, man?" You know, it's like, oh, he's like, "I'm just, you know, I'm a homeless veteran. I'm waiting to get services here at the VA down here. And there's this huge waiting list." And I was like, "What are you gonna do in the meantime?" He's like, "Man, I'm just gonna go back to Peachtree and Pine, you know, the shelter down there across from Emory Midtown." And so, and I was like, "Man, that's not right." You know, I was like these guys, I mean, they put it all on the line. I mean, some of them, you know, were injured. I mean, some of them weren't in wartime, but I mean, you know, hey, you know, service member, you know, they did their time in there, entitled things, and they damn sure shouldn't be living on the freaking streets. And I told my wife about that, and she was like, "Yeah, we got to do something about this." And I was like, "Yeah." And you know, I reached out to Steve again. I was like, "Dude, there's a population down here that, I mean, they're underserved. I mean, it's not right." And man, that was all she wrote, man. You know, I started it up, you know, with some advisement. Had Paula Willinger, you know, she's a Gold Star mom. You know, she'd helped out. You know, like I said, my wife, you know, Troy Landry was a guy that, you know, he's our VP. Jared Clark, you know, these guys, Demario Presley. I mean, you met all these guys, you know, Steve or Phil Cannell. These guys, we just got together and we're like, hey, we're doing something about this, you know, and you know, we just came up with, you know, Shadow Warrior Foundation, because, you know, they hide in the shadows, and we know they're warriors, man. You know, we just got to kind of bring them out of it, you know, say, hey, man, you got a lot more to offer than you think, because it's such a hard transition to make. You know, when you come out of the military, just being able to translate what you did in the military to a civilian job, man, it's hard, you know. And you know, I mean, yeah, there's programs in the military that help you, you know, transition out, and, you know, Soldier for Life and all that stuff. But I mean, it's nothing can really prepare you for it, you know. And what we do as Shadow Warriors is, you know, we tell them, you know, hey, it's okay, man. You know, you fall in hard times, you know, that's what you do. But just like in the military, man, you fall down, you get busted up, you jump back up, dust yourself off, and do what you got to do. You know, and I mean, it's a lot easier said than done. But when you have a support group out there, it helps out and it makes a difference, and that's what we do. Mm-hmm. You know, I mean, we take on those subjects that are difficult. You know,
right?
You know, homeless. I was like, are you going to be the guy that rolls your window down 1/4 of an inch and hands out $1, or do you want to get out of the car and be like, hey man, what's really going on? How can I help you? You know, it's the same thing with PTSD. You know, I mean, it's a hidden killer. You know, you don't wear it on your sleeve. It's just in you, and you don't really have a choice. You can either smoke your mind out with medications, with some folks need that, or you can just be like, you know, what I do now is like, man, I talk about it. It's rough. It's, you know, it's prickly. It's itchy. It's not something that's comfortable. But, you know, hell, somebody's got to freaking do it, you know? Because, I mean, I can't have my friends, my buddies killing themselves.
Right.
That you know, if I didn't have my wife, like I said, I'd have been wind chiming there in Fort Polk, man. It got to the point, man, I was drinking every day. I had a Gatorade, a little green Gatorade bottle, you know, the ones with the yellow caps.
Yep.
I would get home from work, man. I'd fill that thing up, and I try to drink it away, make it stop. You know, it didn't, man. And I found a tree in Louisiana, and I was like, all right, man, it'll hold my weight. I use 550 cord because it doesn't break. And, you know, I'll be away so my kids don't see me, you know, and I was good with it. And my wife, it was the craziest thing, man. I remember I was sitting on my couch, and, you know, I was going to do it that evening, and she basically just walked by and she tapped me on my knee, my right knee, and she was like, hey, let's go for a walk. You know, we haven't gone on a walk in a while. Let's go for a walk. And so we went for a walk and just started talking and never thought about it again.
Wow. Do you remember like anything specifically she said that kind of changed your mind?
She said, hey, baby, let's go walk it out. And I was like, okay. It's crazy, man.
Wow.
Because I was happy with the decision. That's what made it scary.
When you look back and you look back at that moment and you got home that night, did anything seem different to you after that?
I was just optimistic, man. I was like, yeah, you went through some stuff. A lot of guys do. Don't let it define you. If you let it define you, let it be in a positive light so other people don't go through it.
Wow. I mean, that's incredible. I mean, God bless your wife. God bless you. Like that's just, I'm so glad to hear that there's a happy ending. And I know the struggles are still there for you. I'm not trying to, sugarcoat that every day isn't tough.
Oh, sure.
You have good days and bad days, and that's certainly, but I mean, in the overall grand scheme, the fact that it was your wife who saved you is incredible. And God bless her for being aware enough to even just ask you to go on a walk. It's something so small that literally saved your life. That's just, it's beautiful. It's touching, and all at the same time, it's, scary because it was that close to happening. Ryan, how do people get in touch with the Shadow Warrior Foundation if they want help?
I mean, man, we have a Facebook page. We have a website, shadowwarriorfoundation.org. I mean, man, we hit the streets, we're always out on the streets, man. We go down to Atlanta. It's called shadow chasing. We have a lot of great support. Utility Partners of America, they provide us, with monetary support so we can build out these kits and take toiletries out to these guys. Nothing feels better than a baby white bath, man. You know that, being out in the field and stuff, man. Yeah. It's like, yeah, man, it's a sweet feeling, man. We have our card in there because then we know a lot of these guys are struggling, man. I mean, we, like Northside Hospital helps us out. We work with a guy named Gunny Talbot, Tim Talbot. He works with a lot of Marines that are struggling, man. And we work with the Veterans Empowerment Organization. We kind of just have this network going to where we find guys and they're ready to come off the street or they're ready to receive some help. Then we can point them in the right direction. It's like, hey, man, we can help you get to this point if you want to, because a lot of these guys aren't ready to come off the street. A lot of these guys aren't ready to address some of these issues, man, because they're hard to deal with, and, we put our cards out there and folks reach out to us and it's like, hey, I have a son who's in Atlanta somewhere. He's a veteran. He's struggling. Can you find him? And we go out and we do that,
Wow.
And
it's amazing.
It's just what we do, man. It's, if we can help one guy, one girl, whoever, man, that's a success. I mean, we're not gonna, heal the world or anything like that, but man, those small little, dinks in the armor, man, that makes a difference after a while.
Ryan, it's an amazing tale. Your courage is unbelievable. The fact that you're still here is inspiring, and it's a great testament to others who may be listening, who may be thinking about a certain path that doesn't lead to good things. And the fact that you're still providing help today is not only therapeutic for you, obviously, but what the lives that you're changing on the other end it's just incredible. So I can't thank you enough for sharing your story. I mean, a lot of honesty and a lot of emotion, and thank you for reliving all those painful memories with us, because the story needs to be told. It's stuff like this that they don't make into movies and books and all that other stuff, but it's critically important and it's equally as worthwhile to hear. And so thank you so much for sharing it, and we certainly appreciate it.
Hey, Mark, I appreciate the opportunity, man. Y'all are doing a great thing. Y'all really are.
Well, Ryan Hepworth, thank you so much for being part of the Hazard Ground.
Thank you. Appreciate it, man.
You've been listening to the Hazard Ground Podcast, hosted by Mark Zeno and produced by Matt Pasquarella. If you have an interesting story to tell and you'd like to be on the show, send us an email at hazardgroundpodcast@gmail.com. And if you like the show, don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review on iTunes. Thanks for listening. We'll see you next time.